It's showtime.
Hello and welcome to Musical Lyrical Lingo. We're your hosts, Tim
and LJ. Today and every week we will be talking musicals and specifically what they taught us.
Yay! Episode 19.
Episode 19?
Yeah, we're nearly hitting multiple of 10.
That is crazy, isn't it?
It's insane. It's actually insane, yeah.
It's still a really fun journey though, so I'm glad we've got to this point and we're not like,
hating each other.
No. So you had a holiday.
I know, I'm just back from holiday. I'm feeling very depressed. So I don't know if today's musical choice is the best option. But yeah, no, I had a great time in Italy.
And you actually got to see that big bright ball in the sky, which was the sun.
I know. And I came back and I haven't been fried like an air fryer.
Yes, I know. I actually was going to say.
I mean, it doesn't look like I've been on holiday because I'm no different in colour or sun.
We don't want tans. The sun is bad.
I mean, I'd love a wee tan, to be fair. I think everyone looks better with a wee bit of a tan, but I didn't burn my forehead or my scalp.
Well done you.
Yeah, I know.
You learned.
Absolutely, but it was lovely. Oh, take me back. Italy, you were sublime. There's my favourite word.
I know, and here I went to see the Barbie movie and Ken says the word sublime and I laughed out loud because it made me think of you.
Yeah. So Ken from Barbie fame makes you think of me.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
yeah,
I wish people linked me to Ryan Gosling more often. I'd take that. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, no, it did actually make me laugh out loud. It was like, oh, it's sublime. I was like, oh, that's Timothy's word.
I've also come back from holiday with my new obsession, following on from the Horlicks obsession I now have. I love limoncello.
Oh, I love that too.
Holy moly, where's limoncello been all my life?
But I suppose you were drinking the real stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the weight of our suitcases coming back were
Did you bring some home?
Were significantly heavier than when we went out.
Oh.
Yeah. We knew we had a couple of pounds, is it?
Yeah.
A couple of pounds left. Kilos. A couple of kilos left. I don't know if it was as much as a kilo. And we were like, yeah, we'll just bring home a couple of bottles, I think, to keep us going.
Perfect.
In the winter months, you know.
Nigella makes a few recipes with limoncello.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's quite interesting because it was weird. I turned the TV on yesterday morning and one of the Saturday morning kitchen shows, they were doing a segment on everything you can do with limoncello and I was like, that's
no way.
Really freaky.
I love when things like that happen though.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, so I'm here.
Half drunk.
I mean, I'm delighted to be here with you, but I also would much prefer to still be sunning myself in Sorrento, drinking limoncello in the heat rather than...
I know, because we have not had a summer. The weather's been rubbish.
Absolutely shocking, yeah.
Yeah, no, all good. I am heading off soon, in a couple of weeks' time, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. But I feel like I can't get excited about it until we've had first day of school over and done with.
Why did you have to bring that word up?
I know. So that's why I'm kind of and I don't want that to rush, be here tomorrow or anything. So I just feel like once I get first day of school.
You've got a week. Well, so I've got a week left.
They've got 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So.
And I just have no idea where my summer's gone. That I have one more week of freedom before back into the routine of school life. Oh God, I'm really depressed today.
I know, maybe today's musical is going to be a bit weird. If we just start sobbing in the corner.
To be fair, this musical is linked to sobbing for me. I barely get through listening to it or watching it without having a wee breakdown at some point.
It does make you totes emosh.
It's totes emosh, this one, yeah.
Because of everything that it talks about, or just you find any performance or soundtrack that you've listened to? Like, is there a huge connection to it? Is that what it is? Is it bringing back all that?
I definitely have a connection to it, but I think as a piece, it's really powerful.
Yeah.
I think,
That's
and it just hits the wee raw nerves. So, shall we tell before we talk any more about it? Like, so what is it? What is
your
it?
clue last week was "Jumps Over the Moon,"
which was so obscure because it is a musical number in this musical, but it's not one of the well-known ones.
No,
it's really wacky and left field. Is that the right thing to say? Left field. Yeah, so it's Jump Over the Moon is a number that's done by Maureen in the musical
Rent.
There we go. So we're talking about Rent today.
And it is a great musical.
Oh my goodness. It's I don't think there's many musicals like it, to be quite honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's kind of out there on its own.
I know. I feel like there's a lot to discuss about this musical, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to do it and talk about it.
Like, when you think of musicals, and a lot of musicals we've talked about in the podcasts, like, you could kind of group them a wee bit with other musicals that are similar or kind of go on the same vein or are linked, I suppose. But this one, I'm like going, I cannot think of another musical which is in the same box as such.
Interesting, because I'm gonna make a comment about this musical like later on. So yeah, we'll come back to that.
All right, cool.
So that's exciting. Shall we?
Do you have background?
Yeah. So Rent is a rock musical.
Yeah.
It's another one of those trilogy where it's the same person that wrote the music, the book, and the lyrics. Yeah. And that person was Jonathan. No, I'm going to say it wrong. Larson. Yay, I got it. It's loosely based on the 1896 opera La Boheme.
Indeed, yeah, Puccini's.
Which is Puccini and Elia and Gaia Gosca.
I have no idea. Ryan Gosling, did you say?
No. Gia Gossa. There we go. Anyway, which that itself is actually based on the 1851 novel Scenes of Bohemian Life by Henry Murger.
Very good.
So there's a couple of materials for it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that Rent does really well is as a modern adaptation for the opera. It's really clever because the opera traces like tragic fortunes of a group of aspiring artists.
Yes.
And that's kind of told in a more modern way within Rent, which I thought was a really clever, taking a source material and twisting it and updating it. Yeah, really clever.
And so in La Boheme, the main illness is TB, tuberculosis.
That's right, yeah.
But then Jonathan Larson changed it to AIDS and homelessness within...
And drug addiction and stuff like that.
Within the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, because Rent is set in New York's East Village in the 1900s. Is a story of love, hope, and family during times of crisis, including addiction, AIDS, poverty, which is rampant throughout the society at that time.
Yeah. So where it is set, where you mentioned there, Lower Manhattan, East Village, whenever it was written, that was really thriving for the Bohemian life. Yeah. So it's and I feel you can sense that there is like a bubble underneath of what's happening where they're living. And it says something about the Alphabet City dealing with love, life, AIDS, and HIV. Yeah, so it started in 1988 by actually playwright Billy Aronson. Aronson is actually how the concept came about. So he wanted to create a musical based on the 1896 opera. He met Larson in 1989, and they then collaborated. And it was Larson that then suggested setting it in the East Village, and he came up with the name Rent. And then in 1991, he said, could he actually just take it and make it his own? Nice. So,
yeah. And it was one of those musicals that started off as workshops. Yeah. And then it went to onto an off-Broadway production. Mm-hmm. But I think this is the background of Jonathan Larson, and his musical Rent also has a very unique story. Yeah. To many others. Sadly, Larson barely lived to actually see Rent on stage, and obviously see how successful he and his show became, because Larson died, sadly, suddenly, of an aortic aneurysm the day before the first preview, which I think, when you know that and you know that backstory, adds a whole other layer to this show, which, in my opinion, I think this show is fantastic as a piece. And I think Larson's work and music within it is also brilliant. But then when you add on the fact that he never got to see it open on stage properly, you know, forget the workshops, but to see it as a production on a stage, and to see the success and the response it got, it also just adds to how special it was and how sad that kind of is.
I think so. And he wanted, his whole idea around Rent was, because it's that rock musical, he wanted to bring musical theatre to the MTV generation. So you can tell that it's something a little bit different to maybe what was on Broadway at the time. So it wasn't off Broadway for very long, was it? It was like 4 months.
Yeah, I think maybe. What happened, the tragedy that Larson died before the opening night, I think it then attracted unprecedented publicity for the show. That was, let's be honest, quite an obscure off-Broadway production. So then what happened, because it got out into the media that this had happened, that, you know, the composer and the writer had died and never got to see his work on stage. It drew such big crowds that it then moved very quickly from off-Broadway into Broadway, into, at that time, it was an empty theatre, and I think a theatre at on its last legs, really. I think it was a Nederlander theatre.
Not sure.
It moved into there, and also cleverly, and I think this is maybe something we might talk about later, the producers cleverly priced the tickets so that they were affordable for the people who wanted to see the show. Which weren't the affluent and the rich and the theatre goers of the day. It was the younger MTV generation. And I think that brought about a change in musical theatre that we'll maybe talk about later once we've done our musical lyrical lingos. Yeah,
absolutely. It ended up running for 12 years in Broadway and did win several awards, including Tony for the best musical.
Yeah, it won 4 Tonys in total. It was nominated for 10, won 4. Best musical, as you say, and best original score. You know, which is sad that Larson was never there to. No,
I think their contract between Aronson, it's Aronson, I think it's Aronson, was that if it ever made it to Broadway, he would get acknowledgement of some of the songs. So that's nice as well. And then obviously it was made into film in 2005.
It was. Which was great because, and what was special about that film was the majority of the people in the film were the original cast or company. So none of them were film stars.
That's right.
Most of them were completely unknown. And then they were thrown into this, and I think as a film adaptation, it was brilliant. It was done really brilliantly. And probably the biggest star out of all of them was Idina Menzel, I suppose, who went on to Frozen fame. However, within musical theatre, she also went from Rent to become very popular and successful. But
but quite a lot of them started off in Rent, and you would, if you know musical theatre, you would know most of their names. That all started in Rent, and even a lot of people that you would know now started off in Rent. So it seems like it's one of those shows for younger up and coming musical theatre actors and actresses that they then start off in Rent. They get that real, it's kind of gritty, isn't it? That they learn how to do that role, and then they move on to some wonderful big roles.
It's big shoes to fill though if Rent's your first gig. Do you know what I mean? Because it's very it's hard hitting. It's dramatic, isn't it? So like you've gotta be really good act, but also you need to be able to sing these rock songs.
Yeah.
Which it wouldn't be the easiest, I wouldn't think.
No, and they certainly don't like follow a real rhythm. Would that be right? The songs, like you need to know exactly what note you're singing, what timing it is. There's a lot going on.
It's complex, like it's complicated. Yeah. And I think it took Larson a long time to write it.
Yeah.
I think he really had to put many, many, many hours of work into it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think, I'm not so, I don't know for sure, but I don't think he was the type of composer. You hear these stories about how they sat down in a coffee shop and they wrote this song within 3 hours. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he did that. I think he worked tirelessly at it for over a longer period of time. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he started to collaborate in 1989, but then it was in 1993 was the first workshop. So that is like
a long enough time.
It's a long enough time for a musical like that, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Shall we look at our musical lyrical lingos then?
Yeah, I've quite a few. What about you?
It's a funny one in that the majority of our episodes, it's been about lyrics and what I learned from lyrics, maybe lyrics I didn't know or words I wasn't sure about. This time round, a lot of my musical lyrical lingos are what it taught me as a person. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have musical lyrical lingo from the song "You Okay, Honey" that Angel sings to Collins.
You okay, honey?
That the word purloined means steal. Didn't know that word.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Did they purloin anything? They didn't have much for them to take. So I didn't know that meant steal.
That's when he gets I think Collins gets mugged and Angel comes to his assistance and that's the first time they meet each other and then they fall in love.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful.
It is. Yeah, it is beautiful. Yeah.
It is beautiful. And again, the movie and the stage production aren't very different, but they start differently, as in there's not tune 1, 2 and 3 first in the musical. There is, and then it goes into Rent, while the film opens with Rent.
I think opening with Rent works
better. So there's a couple of it's a sung through musical.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Everything is sung. There's no
place to hide.
Yeah. So and then in tune up 3, I learned about they say AZT.
AZT, or AZT,
AZT.
as they say. Yeah.
And that is the drug that was used to delay the development of AIDS in patients of HIV.
That's right. And that was one of my ones, because in La Vie Boheme, which is a big, massive number, they're in the live cafe.
Yeah.
At the end of Act 1, and basically they're ordering food, but it becomes like a riot and great fun, like a big party. And then all of a sudden it stops and like a wee alarm goes off, like beep, 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 like a pager alarm. And they go, AZT break. And I didn't, when I first came to Rent, I didn't know that AZT was an antiviral medication.
Yeah.
So for AIDS,
taught that. Light My Candle. That kind of taught me that heroin, you needed to light it and melt it.
Oh, yeah, fair enough, yeah.
Because Mimi meets Roger for the first time.
Yeah.
She needs a candle. And I was like, why does she need a candle? Is the power out? Like, what is the candle for? But she's like, I've lost it. It's pure. And I was like, what's pure? And she's talking about her heroin stash.
Yeah, that's right.
So it taught me a bit about drugs.
Yeah, she came in and she drops the drugs and then she can't find them in his apartment. And she was like, I knew I had it when I came in here type thing.
So, and then also it's the first time I heard about Spike Lee, who was an an African-American director.
Okay, yeah.
So he, at that time, I suppose that it was being written, he would have just released Malcolm X in 1992.
Okay.
So that was like a really big movie.
And what was the premise of Malcolm X again?
It's about like the 1960s. Fight for like African Americans.
Yeah. For equality.
Yeah, equality and jobs and all of that. So a bit like Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
So,
and wasn't he killed? Malcolm X was also killed.
Yeah.
As part of that fight.
Yeah, those riots.
Yeah.
And then another song in Today for You. Again, it's...
Today for you.
Yeah, it's Angel.
Tomorrow for me.
No, but she mentions quite a lot. She like in one of the lines, it's like Bustelo Marlboro.
Yeah.
So the Bustelo is a coffee brand.
Yeah.
And then obviously Marlboro is cigarettes, a brand of cigarettes. And then Captain Crunch, it's a cereal.
Yeah.
Which is actually a really delicious cereal.
Never had it.
Oh, it's really lovely.
Have you had it here when you've been in America?
Both.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can buy it here as well. And then Stoli is a vodka brand. And then they mention MIT, which is Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Yeah.
So that kind of like... There's a lot. Oh, and also, sorry, it mentions about Thelma and Louise's ending. And I've never seen Thelma and Louise, but from that I knew that they drive off a cliff and die.
Yeah.
That was just interesting. It was that. Prozac's mentioned in You'll See, and I didn't know what Prozac was. Also, Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
Like, Santa Fe must be the most beautiful place, because how many musicals talk about Santa Fe?
We should go sometime, because Newsies dropped Santa Fe into that show as well.
Yeah, so it must be that's why I've said this must be a really dreamy place. But there's quite a lot mentioned in Santa Fe, and I think it's the showing the intelligence of Collins in that.
Because he's a tutor, isn't he, at the local like tech as such. Yeah.
So they talk about they talk about a philosopher who was called Martin Heidegger.
Okay.
I mentioned him, and his philosophy was all about truth is the truth of being, and time finds its meaning in death.
Yeah.
So you have to die in order to have meaning.
Okay.
Which Rent is all about that. So I just thought that was really...
Yeah.
Oh, it actually got me then really looking at his work.
Yeah.
And trying to understand. But yeah, it's in like little things like that. A word or somebody's name, it's not just there because it rhymes or to fill something. There's a real meaning behind it, and you need to, in a lot of these musicals, go and research and see 100%. What the influence is.
Yeah, absolutely, because that was one of the things that I picked up on too, and just how clever Jonathan Larson was, you know, in a musical that's kind of, so much of it is about equality and tolerance and all of that. There's a lot of name checks.
Yes.
In a lot of the different musical numbers. The one that I picked up on was La Vie Boheme, which for me was like a whole new education to me within the lyrics, because it mentions endless civil rights campaigners, LGBT campaigners, AIDS activists. And I'll just mention a few, like it includes Maya Angelou, Susan Sontag, Gertrude Stein.
Yep, that's right.
Then also mentions numerous actors and film stars and poets. Not forgetting that this musical is based around a group of bohemians.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Artists.
Yes.
You know, so it's like a nod to
them
artists and actors and poets and film stars that have come before them. And then not to mention all the LGBT terminologies as well that are within La Vie Boheme. Do you know what I mean? Which for me, I knew some, but I didn't know all of them. So give La Vie Boheme a listen, listeners, because like it's just endless name checks, which is something Larson, I think, liked to do.
I think so. I think he was heavily influenced.
Yeah. And people who influenced him, he threw into his work. Yeah.
No, it was really in La Boheme, like, so it mentions like Dylan, which is obviously Bob Dylan.
That's right.
And then Cunningham and Cage. And they were a choreographer and a musician who worked a lot together, specifically like trying to promote LGBT. And then there's like Ginsberg, but I think Susan Sontag, her essays were all on like modern culture. So again, like you could just think that they're just names for the sake of the fact that the names are there, but whenever you go in, you go, that person had an influence, or at that time was talking about something that nobody else, you know, was brave enough to talk about.
That's it. And even that terminology of bohemians, like for me, when I came to it, I didn't really know what Bohemians were. Do you know what I mean? And even La Vie Bohème, the name of that big song at the end, I didn't know what La Vie Bohème meant, and it's French for the Bohemian life. Yeah. So, you know, the song and the entire musical celebrates like modern bohemianism, which champions creativity and individual freedom over mainstream lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? Different and now I'm like, you know, you go to certain places and you'll be like, oh, they're totally bohemians. Yes. Like, look at them, look at their work they're doing. Like, it's just, yes. But I didn't know what bohemians were. Okay.
Do you know really educated you on that,
Because then, fast forward to when I watched Moulin Rouge for the first time, I went, oh, bohemians, because they're bohemians in Moulin Rouge as well. The kind of life lessons that Rent taught me were huge.
Yeah, massive.
And when I came to experience Rent for the first time, it was a really life altering and changing opportunity for me, and I learnt a huge amount. Some of them sound a bit corny, but at the time they really weren't corny to me, and I learnt a lot. Like, so one of the first things that I took out of Rent, because I was lucky to be in a production of Rent, which not many people, like, it's not a musical that's done very often.
No, definitely not.
So when I was 22.
Okay, so but when were you first introduced to Rent?
Then.
At age 22?
I knew nothing about it until one of the local companies said, this is our next show. And I went, oh, that sounds really different and new, and that was the first time.
Really? No, we did sing a song in stage school, but like we didn't know.
But also that song, it's 500 or Seasons of Love, is so.
It's used everywhere.
It's used everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could, like, a school choir could sing it as a really nice, because it's a great song, but it doesn't go into, you know, it doesn't go into Rent, you know, the story of Rent.
And you know, it's really funny. Just quickly talk about that. We sang it in stage school for something, or maybe it was just practice or singing.
It was like a singing lesson, or.
But we, again, going back to misheard lyrics, are just not that there was no such thing as the internet back then. There was, but you weren't easily accessible to a lot of stuff. And we were singing the song, and it was in the life of friends. On our piece of paper, it said in the life of Christ.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, very
because
different.
Because then, whenever I was, you know, then in love with Rent and really sort of trying to figure out what the words were, I was like, that's not what I was taught. Yeah. Always cracks me up.
I think I maybe knew one or two songs, but I didn't know it as a piece. No. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Funny, talking about Seasons of Love, we all learnt that there were 525,600 minutes.
Yep, in a year.
Because that's the line that's repeated many times in that song. Yeah. Go and give it a listen, folks. On our playlist, our musical lyrical lingo playlist.
But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say that was funny.
So what Rent taught me was to live in the moment and to live every day like it's your last. And there's it's a beautiful lyric that's mentioned in a few different songs. There's like songs called Finale. And there's like Finale A and Finale B. In Finale B, one of the lyrics actually says, there is no future, there is no past. I live this moment as my last. There's only us, there's only this. Forget, regret, or life is yours to miss. And Mimi sings that, and it's like, that's perfect. Yeah. Like, live for the moment, live for now, no regrets, or time just will pass you by. And I think there's a lot of his lyrics that are really deep, but actually like real life lessons. And certainly for me, even though I was 22, which is quite old, but I was really naive. I was naive in a lot of things in life. Do you know what I mean? It also taught me, there's that brilliant song between Maureen and Joanne, Take Me or Leave Me, and they're girlfriends, and they're basically having an argument. Like, they have arguments often, but it doesn't mean they're gonna like break up. They're just a
fiery couple,
and they're very different. Very different. Joanne's a lawyer, and Mimi is
Maureen.
Sorry, Joanne's a lawyer,
and
Maureen is an artist who sings
over the moon.
Over the moon. Yeah, exactly. But in their song, they sing, take me for what I am, who I was meant to be, and if you give a dam, take me baby or leave me.
Yeah.
And it just kind of showed me that whether it's sexual orientation, race, personality or style, be yourself. And the people who care about you will accept and embrace you for you, which I thought was really nice. I also learned that, I mean, it's not that I learned it, but I kind of like cemented it in my head that friends are family that you choose.
Absolutely.
And I know that sounds really corny.
No.
But, you know, here is a group of friends. They come together just because they have the same interests in art and that bohemian lifestyle. But you couldn't get a tighter, closer knit grip if you tried.
Yeah.
And they have their troubles and they have their turmoils, but they are there for each other and they have got each other's back. So they are a family.
Yeah.
You know, they are a unit. So friends are family that you choose.
No, I love that.
And just that Rent demonstrated above all that love was equal.
Yeah.
And no matter, and to be honest, like there's a lot of that now on TV and in film, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But back then, I'm sorry, but there wasn't.
No, definitely
There
not
really
whenever
wasn't.
this was written. And even, so the film came out in 2005, so even around then, it was certainly better than it was in the 80s and the 90s in the early 2000s, but it wouldn't be where it is now in 2023.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see loads of different, you know, exes being friends or, you know, or with being able to operate within the same group. If you know, think of Mark and Maureen, and then, you know, like somebody has loved and lost, somebody that's suffering, like there's just loads of different dynamics in that group, and everybody was able just to accept and get on. And
all love is equal no matter your background. You can't help but, I couldn't help but admire the passion and the companionship that existed between all the different pairs in Rent. You know, love is love, and that there's no greater proof of that than the romances and the strength that propelled the characters in Rent.
Yeah. I think it's particularly between Angel and Collins.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got Angel and Collins, who Angel was a drag artist. So, you know, both guys, you've got Maureen and Joanne. You've got Mimi and Roger. Do you know, like, total mix of all different, you know, pairs and, you know, relationships. And within the company that I did it with, there were all those different, you know, people, you know, and that was also the first time that I had been done. Experienced that so openly. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Without criticism or you know, bias or, you know, it was just really lovely. Yeah. And I think that's why, apart from the music, which I love, like I love it and I love the story, I also just love the message.
You love that it's about love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All love. Yeah, it was really special. So that's what I took away from musical lyrical lingo.
Yeah, and I would say I learned that too.
From Rent, not from musical lyrical lingo.
No, I liked how everybody was celebrated, everybody came together. I liked how it showed people at their worst times, but also, you know, also that sense of whenever you're younger, you do feel like you need to make an impact in the world. And with Roger and his one song, and he's got to write this one song. Yeah. But I think from doing this, and probably as we go on within our series, that's a real reflective piece from Jonathan himself. Yeah. You know, and that just running out of time. Will I get to make an impact? Will I do something good? Will my life be worth it? That type of thing. That's what I really learned. And I also learned that if you are passionate enough about something, protest about it. Or get, you know, educate yourself so that you can educate others. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, you can protest about anything.
And that's exactly what Maureen was doing in Rent as well, wasn't it? Because they were trying to shut down lots of artistic spaces. So then she goes and protests and sings about the cow jumping over the moon, which is the most bizarre musical theatre number you will ever hear anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's her taking a stand and going, no, you're not going to treat us like this.
Yeah.
This isn't okay. Yeah. I mean, characters are brilliantly... I say brilliantly written, but the thing is, as you've said, they reflect his friends. They reflect Larson's friends. He knew people like all of those characters in his show. Do you know what I mean? So you can call them characters, but they were people he knew. Like,
and I think that's why it was a success as well, because he wrote about what he knew. So he was writing something real.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I suppose of its time, it could have been scandalous. Do you know what I mean? The crisis that he was addressing, the issues that he was addressing. But I think, Joe Blogs, apart from these bigoted people that would go and see a show like that and would immediately have an issue with it, everybody else, the rest of rest of the audience that did go and see it couldn't have not come away with a different mindset, or certainly being questioned or challenging. It would have made them think for sure. And then a huge amount of the audiences would have grasped it and continued on with the charge, and kind of standing up for the messages of the story.
I think so. And I think they were the first fans as such of musical theatre. They were called like rent heads.
Rent heads, that's it.
And then that's where the lottery ticket came from, like you had mentioned earlier.
So that's what I was going to say. I think Rent is responsible, I think, for two things in musical theatre. It's that start of the lottery tickets or the rush tickets that you see now, because that's exactly what happened. Yeah. So many people wanted to see Rent that they then had these lotteries, where the young MTV generation, let's be honest, at that point were the most powerful, to bring about change or to drive forward an issue. They were the ones that were so desperately wanting to see it that they queued, early in the morning to get the 50 tickets at a really reduced price. So Rent brought that about, and also started the kind of fandoms that musicals have now with the Rent heads. Do you know what the fans are called for some other musicals?
I did know for a couple of other ones that we've, like Beetlejuice. I can't remember the name now, it's gone out of my head. But anyway.
What about Wicked? What do you think the Wickeds were called? Or the Wicked fans are called, apparently?
I don't know.
They're called the Wickedites.
Oh,
classy, isn't it? What about Newsy? We talked about Newsies there because it mentions Santa Fe.
I don't know. What's Newsies?
They're called the Fansies, which I think is really cool.
I love it. Yeah. That's cool.
And then the other one I found was Heathers. Now, Heathers is, I know it's a film and I know it's a real cult following. I don't get it. I didn't enjoy it when I saw it, but there's a massive fandom for Heathers. Do you know what they're called?
No.
Corn Nuts. And I think it's to do with something,
a reference
within the show,
musical. Yeah.
But maybe when we do Heathers sometime.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that, yeah. So Rent is, apart from, what it talks about and, the sad story that goes with it, with regards to Jonathan Larson, it's responsible for a bit of a shift, really.
Which is really
in musical theatre.
Interesting. So, did you know that it's referenced in quite a lot of, Rent is referenced in other musicals, like quite a lot of other musicals?
Yeah, yes, and also I think a lot of TV shows. Loads of TV shows have kind of done random musical episodes in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I think Rent's been used a couple of times in various different ones. I think it's just because of its time.
Yeah.
It had a lasting impact, I think.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think so. And I think if anybody's referencing it, you've made an impact. And also if anybody is making a parody of it, you've hit, you've created a piece that is making art in itself.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Absolutely,
so it's the Team America, which is by the guys who do South Park.
Yeah.
There's a whole big section in Team America that sort of takes the mick out of Rent.
I'm glad I haven't seen that.
It wouldn't be something that you would be...
I would not be okay with that.
No, you would not be okay with it. But as somebody who doesn't mind that type of humour.
Yeah.
I understand it. I like can see why people would enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I was a musical theatre fan and a lover of Rent at that time. And now the Team America must have come out around the same time as the 2005 film, because I went to see Team America with Aaron when we were boyfriend and girlfriend.
Okay.
And we started going out around that time.
Yeah.
So, they made it. South Park did a whole episode, without the same writers, did a whole episode on it. It's referenced in Hedwig and the Angry Itch.
Okay.
Because he wants to play Angel, and he references about this being the part that he really wants to play. Is it Yitzhak or something? I don't know all the characters.
I haven't seen the show, but do you know what their fans are called? Hedwig and the Angry Inches?
No.
Wigheads.
Wigheads. Oh, okay.
It's a good one,
cool. Then, I don't know if you know this, but Rent was a massive inspiration for Hamilton. And if you are a Rent lover and you love Hamilton, you will be able to
make
spot
the connections. So
even the layout of Rent it's set in a couple of places, but mainly in their apartment, which is, scaffolding.
Yeah.
And Rent is obviously that scaffolding around the edges. The way Mimi dies on the table.
Don't remind me.
And the Philip, Hamilton's son, dies on the table, and a few of the words that they say are the same. Lin-Manuel Miranda was a massive fan of not. He seen it when he was like 17, and it really changed.
Right. Okay.
Changed him.
Yeah.
In Burr's song. No, that's not Rent. That's the other one. But anyway, in a couple of the other, you can see in a lot of Lin-Manuel Miranda's work, and how he references other people, is he's got that from Jonathan's work. Yeah. Yeah. So Rent, I think, for a lot of people, if they seen it when they were in their teenage years, those formative years, have found it to be a helpful experience. Yeah. Especially if you were living in New York, or you were living in somewhere which was similar, and you maybe were seeing friends who were dying of this illness. Yeah. They were going to take a lot from it.
Well, that's it. I suppose it kind of taught me a bit about that too, when, because it's something you hear. And I do remember when I was a kid seeing that awful advert with the tombstone and the tombstone falling down, which was basically a massive campaign that they put across British TV to kind of bring attention to the dangers of AIDS. Yeah. But it was just a total scare tactic as well. I knew looking at the advert, oh gosh, that's really scary. Like, oh my goodness. But I didn't know anything about it really. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then when I did Rent, I kind of learnt a wee bit more about what AIDS was, how it affected people. The fact that there was AZT, which wasn't a cure, but it kind of was there to kind of give a better quality of life and maybe a longer life, but it wasn't going to cure it. And then the fact, one of the characters, Angel, died from it. And there were multiple characters that had AIDS as well, but also had AIDS for various different reasons, not because they were homosexuals, but, the sharing of needles with drug taking, none of that was ever really, I didn't know much about that. Do you know what I mean?
And I think the fact that he in the musical, there's those support groups. I think that was the first time that I was like, wow, there's, everybody knows of AA and NA and stuff, but like, no, there's support groups for people that are going through.
We're going through that.
Going through that. And is it the first support group, the first time you see it, and it mentions like people's names. They were all people that were part of Jonathan's life that had passed on. So, I mean, again, it wasn't just the fact that he pulled out 5 random names.
And it's interesting you should say that. In that first support group, they sing a song called Will I? Yes. And it's one of my favourite songs because it's just so beautiful. But it was inspired by something that Jonathan Larson had heard at an HIV and AIDS support group that he had gone to, not because he had AIDS, but
his best friend had, and he was there as support.
And when he was at that meeting, he jotted down something that one of the people had said, and the person said, "I'm not really afraid of dying. I think I can handle the suffering, but the thing I think about all the time is, will I lose my dignity? And that will I lose my dignity is one of the lines in that song, Will I? And I thought, oh, it made me a wee bit sad when I read that, to be honest. Yeah.
No, I do love it. There's a lot of people out there who don't like Rent, and a lot of people out there think that it manipulates the AIDS. I've listened to quite a lot of people on it, and to be honest, I don't agree with them enough, and I'm not educated enough to be able to argue. I just know what it did for me and what I like about it, and that's all I can comment on.
I don't know how it would have manipulated it. I think it was a true reflection of what life was like, and I don't think they sugarcoated it either. I think they showed it in every, facet of the crisis. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think so too, and I think
I don't know how they manipulated anything other than just presented it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say
for people like me who didn't know it was an education, like.
I know a lot of people say where Mark is filming the homelessness, instead of actually going out there and doing something about it. But
he was an artist, and he was trying to bring about change, and he was trying to bring about change by filming it and recording it and going, look, this is what is happening. This is what life is like for these people. Like. And
I think that is something that
he was a videographer. Yeah, he filmed everything.
You need to take into consideration, not everybody has the same set of skills in life. Not everybody has the same passions. And I remember, this is really random, but I remember when Michael Jackson died, and Lee Francis, who you would know as like Avid Marion, Bo Selecta, and he did this parody of Michael Jackson's life. And I remember somebody said, do you think that this is a bit insensitive? You're doing this thing all about Michael Jackson. He says, I am a comedian. I am an artist. This is how I pay tribute. And that was how many years ago, that interview. And I was like, I get it. I understand, because that's how he knows how to make something. Yeah. And honour somebody that he was a massive fan of. Yeah. He wasn't standing, in this big room being like, Michael Jackson was amazing at this, and this. He told a story in a form of entertainment that made other people laugh. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but I was like, those were his skills. So the same, I think, for Mark, is he has this video camera. He's interested in recording real life and real people, and that's how we don't know what he went on to do with that, because you only see a short period of time within this. So, although at the end,
at the end of our production, they played.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, you have freaked the life out of me.
Why?
By mentioning Michael Jackson randomly.
Why?
In an episode that's about Rent, because one of my memories when I did the production of Rent that I was involved in, was that one night we finished the show, and the theatre was at the top of a really big steep hill, and we had to walk it overnight to get down to the car park, and we were walking down to the car park to, I think, go to the pub to have a pint, and it came up on our phones that Michael Jackson had passed away.
Shut up!
Swear, look, I'm flicking through my wee notebook now. People will think we planned this, and we genuinely don't talk about anything. When you say, look, where is my memories? MJ died.
What? No,
isn't that freaky?
That is so bizarre.
I know. I was like, why has she just mentioned Michael Jackson? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
That is so weird.
Really freaky, right?
Isn't that strange how just our conversations and then just like things come into your head?
Mental. But I promise, because the listeners are going, yeah, sure, no, they will have mentioned Michael Jackson.
Because I didn't even know because I went to see you in that production of French, but I was actually wrecking my brain there. When was that? Like, was I married? Was I not married?
2008, was it?
Right, okay, yeah. So like, I didn't even know what year that was.
Isn't that really weird? I was like, she's just mentioned Michael Jackson. What?
That is so weird.
Yeah, so there you go.
I love it. Right, so you said sort of at the beginning that nothing has been done like this before. Like, this musical is like a standalone.
I can't think of an alternative or one that's similar, but go for it.
I was doing a wee bit of research and I read an article that said many people compare Rent or say Rent had the same impact to those in the 90s as the impact Hair had to those in the 60s.
Fair enough.
So I was like, yes.
Fair enough.
No, they're not the same.
They're not the same.
They don't talk about the same issues. It's not the same character development or anything like that. But I get it. I understand why maybe people are going, Hair influenced a lot of people in the 60s. Jesus Christ Superstar. Those sort of rock musicals did.
Yeah. It was another social piece, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's a fair comment. Yeah. I think maybe just because I'm not a fan of the music in Hair that I don't know a huge amount of Hair other
but you know enough about it that it did cause like a hair heads. That's not what they're called, but I'm just saying your fans.
A bit of a cult following. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But a cult following based upon a social issue that is brought up in what's Hair campaigning against?
The Vietnam War.
There you go. Yeah.
And also, people are, whenever they're talking about Rent, say that you need to be very mindful that Rent is not what Rent should be, because it was still in preview, it was still when he died. So, and in fact, the last song he wrote was Finale B. What's the last song between Roger and Mimi?
Is it not Finale B?
Is it called Finale B? So, yeah,
that's the last song on the on the soundtrack.
That was the last song that he wrote. They were saying that could have turned, there could have been more added onto it after previews, after people, a lot of the reasons why Broadway shows have previews is so that they can get feedback from the audience, so that they can change what doesn't work. But the fact that the person died, they've kept it.
Yeah.
How it was, so it's never changed.
It would have been really interesting to see what changes he would have made to it, because I'm like, maybe it's just because I love it so much, but I'm like going, I don't know what's wrong with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going, what would he change? Like,
but it would be interesting. Would it have still had those Rent heads? Would it still have had that following if he didn't die? I'm not saying it's not justified. It is.
Yeah.
I do like it. But
would it have its place in musical theatre history if it hadn't? And nobody can answer that.
And also, I think it probably wouldn't.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it probably wouldn't, because it hasn't been adapted or changed or amended.
Yeah.
So we are seeing, probably in the first time ever, a raw piece of theatre that is written and performed how it was in day one.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is interesting. Would it have been as big a hit? However, the producers saw a workshop performance and they offered to fund it off Broadway before they even saw the second act of the workshop.
Oh, okay. So because it was so new.
I think producers saw enough in the first half of the workshop to go, we'll fund this. No, it was still being funded to be shown off Broadway. Yeah. Not, it wasn't going straight to Broadway. But what show ever does? Do you know what I mean? A lot of shows still would do out of town tryouts. Do you know what I mean? Like before they come into the West End or whatever. But yeah, no, I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah. I also, another fun fact I learnt was that Adam Pascal, who plays Roger, isn't that right?
Yeah, Roger.
He had to learn to stop a bad singing habit he had, because I think he had been in bands prior to getting the job in as Roger in the musical, and he had to stop closing his eyes when he sang in order to get the role of Roger. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting, because there's loads of singers that do that, like close their eyes when they sing.
It's like a passion thing, isn't it?
It is, but it also then, this sounds awful, like listen to me, it's a bit of a selfish act, isn't it? In that, if you're in a musical, or even if you're in a band and you're doing concerts, like you are performing to your fans or the people that come to see you, and by closing your eyes, you're kind of like shutting them off a bit, aren't you?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But yeah, so he had to cut that out. Yeah, so there you go. Do you have any stand ovations? Like any songs or moments that you...
This is so random. My favourite song is by Benny. You'll see.
Benny. So Benny is the character that's trying to shut down all the artists' venues.
And I don't know if it's I just love how Tay Diggs sings it.
Great voice.
But I just love that song. I love it. I love how they're being like, you broke your word.
Yeah.
How he's being manipulative. Okay, well, you have to pay back all this rent for the last year, even though I told you you could live here rent free.
Yeah.
Oh, but wait a minute. You don't have to pay it if you shut down Maureen's show. Oh, you know, I'm still one of you guys. Don't worry. I haven't turned into the corporate world. Like, don't worry.
So weird that you're saying that, because of all the characters, he's the one character that you could have an issue with, like you could hate. And actually, a lot of fans aren't fans of Benny because the others are so redeeming in their qualities, even though they have loads of flaws. Like, I just think, although he does kind of come around, he helps them out. Yeah. At the end, when, towards the end of the show with Claire.
Yeah, no, he's not really. And I just love that
villain,
song.
But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if is it the arrangement I love about it, or is it just Tay Diggs' voice? I do. It's my favourite song, but it's not my favourite song. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What is your favourite song?
I think I do really like One Song Glory.
Okay, Roger's song.
Yeah.
Yeah, the song he's trying so hard to write, isn't it?
I love Take Me or Leave Me. I just love that dynamic between, but I think as I've got older, I probably love One Song Glory more. I would listen to it, probably Take Me or Leave Me too, but I would listen to One Song Glory as a single song. Yeah. The most out of all of the songs.
Well, my standing ovation is the most romantic song that's ever been written in any musical theatre ever.
That's a big statement, though.
Yeah, I stand by it. Okay. I genuinely haven't come across another song which has such an impact. Like, I struggle to listen to this song without having a wee tear, like it, and every time, and it doesn't matter who sings it, because I have gone through many hours of YouTube searching to listen to every possible actor that's ever played the role.
Right, to listen to a bad one so you don't cry, or just to listen to
listen to any of them. And I haven't come across even the non-professional, like, they seem to, the ones I've seen, they seem to always get at least a decent singer in the role. And Colin sings it, and it's I'll Cover You. Yeah. Reprise. Now, I think it's made special in that I'll Cover You is sung in Act 1 between Colin and his partner Angel. And it's very the beginning of their relationship. And it's just beautiful. And then Angel dies of AIDS, and Colin sings I'll Cover You reprise at the funeral, and it just is like an outcrying of emotion and love, and it's gorgeous. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And it's and even the way in the film how that's shot is beautiful. It almost starts at the back of the church, and it slowly pans into Colin's. And I
haven't watched that film for many years. I think I'm going to have to watch it again. Yeah,
I do.
It's really, really special. I've enjoyed this episode.
Yeah,
it hasn't been as depressing as I thought it would be.
No,
but it's a special musical that holds a special place in my heart. You know, in life, there's just certain things that you'll do, or certain moments that you'll never forget. And I think Rent is one of the, like, without a doubt, of all of the shows I've been involved in, Rent's the most powerful, and the one will stay with me and has stayed with me for many years. And it's interesting, some of my really good friends, they remember seeing the production of Rent that I was in before they even knew me.
Yeah, I was going to say that if Rent, the production that you were in, I can still almost remember where La Vie Boheme took place, where Take Me or Leave Me took place, where You'll See Boys, where a lot of the numbers, where the voicemails took place. I can see that, and I don't have very good memory. But I don't know whether or not because I loved the musical so much, and it was the first time that I was able to see it on stage, and it had an impact, or whether you just did a really damn good production.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, and I don't big up. And it was also a production that I had nothing to do with creatively. You know, I was just a member of the company and wanted to do the show, but I do believe it was a good production of it, and it was a strong production of it. But I just think it's a really strong musical, strong story. Do you know what I mean? I think, I don't, you know, obviously it has to be done properly to hit the mark, but I don't think you could go and see it and come away and forget about it anytime soon.
I don't think
if it's done properly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think so.
It's the same as the film. Like, you remember the film because the film they did it well.
Yeah.
But it was telling the same story. It just has a lasting quality to it. But I thought that blew my mind when my friends were like, "Were you in that?"
Yeah.
I remember going to see that. That was like I still remember that, and I was like, "Isn't that really interesting?" Because I still remember it, and I was in it. Like, I still, of all the shows, the millions and millions and millions, it is the one that I still remember so vividly and feel so strongly about. And I thought it was really interesting, as you've said, and for them, like, as audience members, you remember it as well.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
It is. And also, a lot of you guys were of that early 20s age. You know, a lot of you were of that age that the cast, the original cast would have been as well, too. So
100%.
Maybe it was just one of those lightning in a bottle moments that production.
I'm trying to remember if there was a like quite particular age limit that was putting onto the show, but I don't think there was, because I think there was older people in it as well. Yeah, but there you go. Oh,
that was a good one. I enjoyed that. It felt quite therapeutic. Yeah.
As always.
I know.
As always.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. There's a lot of learning in it, and I think that it's important to watch something and understand the passion behind how something's been created.
Yeah.
So if you aren't a fan of Rent, or maybe you haven't seen it before, if you watch it with an open mind, understand when it was set, when it was written, what it's based on as well, and just appreciate the beauty and passion that somebody had for the art that was able to create.
Yeah.
A powerful piece.
Yeah. And I think next week we'll obviously follow the same concept of the podcast, and we'll look at another musical. But next week, we won't give you a clue this week, but what we'll say is we're going to continue on looking a wee bit deeper into the composer and the writer, Jonathan Larson. And I think we owe that to his legacy and his memory, because he was clearly very talented and taken far too soon. And I would have been interested to see what would have become of him and how he obviously has made his mark in musical theatre, because we're talking about Rent, and as you say, it's referenced in many different things. But we'll talk more about Jonathan Larson next week and another musical that he was involved in. Yeah. Well, we hope you join us next week. See you then. Bye. Bye.